You are listening to the Coach Sam Show, spelled 5 a.m. And no, it's not just about getting up early. It's about building up leaders of the future. We talk about building up better husbands, better fathers, and following Jesus. And we want to speak to different leaders in the community. But today, we have a special guest and a little bit of a turn of events here. Instead of talking specifically through better husbands and better fathers, we're going to talk all about Train Up Academy. And the co-founder of Train Up Academy and one of the founders of Train Up, Ben Smith, one of my best friends. Give it up for Mr. Ben Smith.
Thank you.
Ben, welcome to the show.
I'm sad that I didn't really fit the framework for better father, better husband, but I'm glad to be here nonetheless.
Well, talking to Alyssa, she said that you were not fit yet.
She's got a list of things I got to improve on.
Yeah, if you want to be on the show for the actual stuff,
I'll work on it.
Yes.
So just talk to her. It'll take a couple years, but
I love it. I love it. All right, we're going to start off with this. Train Up in general.
Yes.
How did Train Up start? How did you get involved in Train Up? What is Train Up? Talk me through the origins of this whole thing.
Wow. Well, it started when I was 4.
Okay.
My dad and I went on this father-son retreat that we do every year. It was an awesome experience, and we felt like there could be more structure in place there and that more people needed to experience that. And so when I was about 15, 16, he developed this like rite of passage for all the group of men that would go, father-sons that were together in that community. And it was really powerful. We would have fathers come up around a fire on that Saturday night, and my dad provided some structure there, and he would have the dads come up and just affirm their sons in their identity and these different character traits that they really saw and felt like was going to do them well in life. And that was really powerful. There was rarely a dry eye in the
Why do you think it was that way? Like, why do you think every time these men were so emotional in that moment? You think they just weren't used to it?
Weren't used to it. I think from the father and son lens, I don't think that relationship, I think, has been broken over the past couple, probably 100 years, just with different technological advances and where society has gone. So I don't think that conversation happens often where the father looks their son in the eyes and just says, hey, I love you and I believe in you and you have what it takes. And so there's that part of it, but then there's the other part too, which is what I think that deep down we are designed, especially as men, to be in community. And it's so cool to see how these, especially the younger boys that were sitting in the audience, rarely can you get a 5-6-year-old boy to sit still.
Yeah.
And when you look out into the audience, when this kind of rite of passage is happening and just this experience over the fire, like everybody's locked in.
Yeah.
And I just think there's something very old, almost in our DNA, that really realizes the importance of that moment, especially within the environment that's kind of been created there. So we just kind of stumbled into this.
Yeah.
And we wanted to take it to more people. And so that's kind of how my dad and I started working on how we would do that.
How did your dad become passionate about this? Like, do you know, this might be even a bigger question. Do you know like what his relationship with his dad was like? Like how did he become passionate about leading these father-son retreats and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think we wrote a book recently and he detailed kind of his story.
Why don't you share with the group what that book is?
Thanks so much for asking.
You're welcome.
I didn't prompt that.
You're welcome, yeah.
Gosh, thank you.
I have it right here. Jacob, put it right here, please.
Link in the description. No, Boys Have a Damn Problem. That is the title of it. And it's really analyzing the boy crisis and the root causes for that. But in that book, he kind of details his experience with his father. And so my dad grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania, in Blairsville, Pennsylvania, a very small town, and just did not have a good experience overall with his dad. He was a very hard man that just didn't know anything else other than farming and just how he grew up. And how his father treated him is how he treated my dad. And so it was never said things like, I loved you, never supported him in any type of like sporting activity, never went to he never allowed him to do sports for the most part. But like, I think he was able to wrestle a couple years in high school and never came to an event. So I think sometimes physically, emotionally abusive to him. So I appreciate my dad because he's definitely a generational curse breaker in that sense. And so I just think that is his story. And so I think there's a special place in his heart for like really trying to do this well.
Yeah.
And I think if you talk to him, he would say, I'm still working on trying to be a good husband, but I was a good father.
Yeah.
He definitely was.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for him for that.
Yeah. It seems like even just talking to Jeff, talking to your dad and y'all have so much intentionality around building up your sons and building up your boys and building up the boys of this generation. I hadn't seen that much like effort and detail put into that specifically. And then to your point, like men speaking encouraging words over each other is not a common practice. Unless you're in some like, even within church communities, I wouldn't say it's a common practice, but unless you're in like kind of like one of our groups, like our home church group, like where we're trying to do that regularly, like that's not a common thing.
Yeah.
And to have your dad look at you and call out gifts in you, like that's a powerful moment. And it's so powerful. I remember the distinct times in my life where my dad spoke those things over me. We didn't have the intentional retreats, but like our family's big in sports, obviously. So like they all revolved around sports. And I remember I was 8 years old. It was like first year of tackle football. And we won on like a game-winning touchdown. I scored. Not a big deal.
How many yards did you have?
Yeah, it's not a big deal. Like probably 136, 3 scores. Final score put us over the top. But I remember like scoring that touchdown, then looking off to the sidelines, and the whole sidelines is running out to like celebrate, and my dad is first, and like picking me up, and like that's a moment that I'll remember forever. I remember him like speaking over me in front of a group and being like, and I want Sam to stand up, and like, you did an awesome job today. I'm so proud. Like I'll remember these moments. And I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and they mark you for life. And it's such a picture of the gospel. Like when I think of the lost son, even though I wasn't lost in that moment, whatever it may be, I think of my dad sprinting after me to pick me up. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's huge. All right. So you started these father-son retreats, and you said when you were 4 years old, you started going to these things?
Yeah, I was like 4 or 5.
4 or 5.
And it started with just 3 dads and their sons. So just started that. And then it ended up becoming, we probably had 50 people that were
That's so cool.
in high school at that point.
Was it always, I should have asked this a while ago, was it always at the spot that we went to this past year, that retreat?
No, that's a new place.
Okay. Gotcha.
We usually would go out into the mountains. So it'd be out in like Stanton, Virginia.
Got it. What's the importance of getting away instead of doing it like at a local park?
Yeah, there is something about, obviously the environment matters, and there's something about being in the mountains. With a group of men. It's just like it's like in your DNA, like it's just something special about that. Versus something local. Like take the idea of taking time to go further. There's something about that. There's the trip too, so you're just spending more time together. But we've even found that with the recent location we're in. It's far enough and it's got a great spot, but it is still different than going to the mountains. So we would love to go back there.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. All right, so you had these father-son retreats, and that's how Train Up started. Did y'all make it official then? Was it called Train Up when you were 4? Like how did it become the Train Up LLC that it eventually became? Like how did that?
Yeah, I think probably like 2019. I was like, Dad, if we're gonna do this, like I think we should really put some intention, thought, structure around it, and like let's make it happen. Like let's do it.
Yeah.
And so I remember sitting down the week prior, I'd put together like a big PowerPoint presentation, which I love.
Yeah, 100%.
And so I remember sitting in the living room and like presenting this proposal for how we would do it, like what the vision would be and how we were different and what was the competitive advantage, and like doing like a whole pitch for it. My dad, I think he was excited about the idea, but also the idea of us doing this together. It's had its ups and downs, but like definitely initially it was like, I want to do this with my son. Like, this would be an awesome thing to do together. And so that's kind of when it started, probably 2019. And so from then on, we would spend hours and hours brainstorming around different things around, well, really the question of the mission, which is training. How do we train our boys to be competent men with Christ-like character? Like thinking about the mission statement, being clear about that, and then trying to answer these really tough questions of like, how do you train a child in the way that they should go? What does that look like? What does the Bible say theologically about how we do that? How do we approach that? Because the hermeneutics around that, people view and
so many
perceive that
different,
different perspectives on what a man should be and do and be capable of, which is what caused a lot of constant like battle between my dad and I, because I was always playing devil's advocate
Yeah.
with him to try to like make sure that we were as close to accurate as we possibly could be and to really think through it.
Yeah.
So you had things of that mission statement, trying to understand. I learned this from my consulting world too. Is like, what's the problem we want to solve?
Yeah.
And then what are the root causes that are driving towards that problem? And then let's really try to identify and figure out a plan of action around these root causes, so that we can actually do something that solves this.
Yeah. Gosh. Okay. 2019 is when that became a thing. All right. And then when did we become friends? When did you move to this area?
Moved up here. So I went to Cornerstone. I was friends with Brandon. Him and I were in a very small group together. It was me, Brandon, and my friend Jacob. Yeah. And we had just basically like a little home church that we would do every week or so. It was a great couple of years, but when Brandon said that he was going to be starting this church, like we felt called to follow him up here.
Yeah.
And so we did that in 2020. And so we moved up here, and then like a week later is when COVID hit.
Yeah.
So that's how we got up here. And Brandon was doing your
morning
workouts, the Easy Day. And I was like, well, yeah, I'll go with you. And we'll
that's right.
So that's kind of how that initial connection happened.
Yeah. And then eventually we started connecting over the fact that, I was coaching high school football. I am coaching high school football with the mission of building better husbands and better fathers. That kind of speaks to some of the train up stuff right there.
Yeah.
And using football to do that. Obviously you love sports. I've never seen someone. Ben is so good at basically every sport you could imagine. And I'm talking like spike ball, ping pong, volleyball, soccer, like everything. Ben, a couple weeks ago, 25 games straight, beat me in ping pong. And it was maddening.
So grateful you said that.
It was maddening. And then we could play spike ball, and I'm like 1-8 in spike ball. And it's infuriating. And I don't know why I brought that up, but I feel like I need healing in that area.
To be fair, we have a tally of who's better in which sports, and Sam still has beaten me in many things, especially basketball, cornhole. I don't think I've ever beaten him in cornhole. So I'll give
that's really important, cornhole, for sure.
Ping pong's right. It's so much better in cornhole. So.
Yeah. But we started becoming friends. We started coaching together. What drew me to you and why I think our skill sets really complement each other. I am very much a just dive right in and iterate as I go. And that's honestly like how, this might not be great to say, that's how I came up with Chip. Like I was thinking through that. I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to be about. Communication, honor, integrity, perseverance. Like what gets me excited about coaching football, building better husbands and fathers. Because the reason I got excited about that, because I would see players, like teammates that I would have, and they just did not have good relationships with their dads. And even if the ones did have good relationships with their dads, you'd see that the dads didn't have good relationships with that person's mom. And it was just like, this husband-father thing seemed like it was lacking, and they weren't doing it well.
Yep.
And I saw the impact that had on my teammates and my friends. Like they would deal with certain things because they didn't grow up with what it looked like to be a good husband and a good dad. So they had no model for it. But I also saw, and I experienced this too, how great mentors through coaching can come and help and push people along and encourage them, and maybe even like redirect their path. So came up with that and started getting excited about that. But our skill sets are so different and complement each other so well, because I'm very much in just start and go and iterate. And you are a thinker, and you're analytical, you plan, you will think things through to the nth degree. So you came and you coached with me, and you would start asking me questions. I asked you to be the culture coach. So what I'd ask him to do, and everybody kind of gets confused when I say, like, why would I bring somebody in? They'd ask me, why would I bring somebody in to be the culture coach when that's what I'm passionate about? Like, I'm passionate about culture, and I help businesses and teams with that. And my response is always, I love Hanover football too much to see it clearly. I wanted somebody to come in and poke holes. And Ben, frustratingly, would come in and poke holes in our program. And I would tell him, I was like, hey, we're about Chip. We're about building better husbands, better fathers. After workouts, just send me if we were about that. And he would send me these emails that I would read, and I would get furious reading. I'd be like, Lauren, I don't understand what he is talking about. This is ridiculous. He is not seeing this.
Communication is something I'm so working on.
So I was getting so frustrated, but then I'd come back and I'd look at it from like a calm lens, and you made our team so much better. Seriously. And still today, even though you're not coaching with us, you have your imprints all over the program. You've helped me think differently. And I think our skill sets have complemented each other a ton. And then it kind of led to where we were today. But I want to hear from your experience, like our relationship starting. What was that like for you, like friendship and all that stuff, moving here, and then eventually it leading to all the different things, which we'll get into in a sec.
So when I moved up here, Brandon connected us because I was doing captain's coach at that time. So I was in the military, did 4 years active duty, and then I wanted to spend a year because I'd spent a lot of time over the course of probably 6 or 7 years reading about like business building and just development in general. And I knew that one of the best ways to develop oneself is to like put yourself out there, especially do something like entrepreneurship wise or build a business. So I literally left the Army and I said, for 1 whole year, I'm just going to do captain's coach, which was just sports leadership stuff.
Yep.
And so when I came up here, that's Brandon connected us. We went to Suzanne's for a lunch, and that's how that started. And I'll give you, I don't have enough good things to say about you. I tell a lot of people how proud I am that we're friends, and like just how proud I am of you in general for all that you do for the community. And as I was doing captain's coach, not a lot of coaches did a good job of taking the feedback. That's partially on me, just because I need to do better about how to like provide feedback probably. I've realized that email is not the best way to do that too. So I lost some clients probably because of that. But what you did was like, you truly wanted to get better. And even though I was in my imperfection of like providing what I thought were just ideas for you to consider, like you had the confidence to still allow that to like happen. Like you allowed your ego to not be big enough to receive that. And that's just not something that many coaches are willing and able to do.
Yeah.
And then immediately when I came in and started seeing what you were doing, the first question I had was like, how am I going to make this better? I do think that what you have put together is the best in the state, no doubt. From what I haven't seen every, football program in the state, but like you are all about it, how you run things, the heart with Jesus at the center of it all, the mentorship, the attention to detail, all of it. It's top notch. It is a collegiate experience that these young, masterful football players are getting the opportunity to experience.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all those words. And so obviously we hit it off. We became best friends. Our wives make fun of us because there's this one picture where we're like talking and we're in deep conversation, and Ben and I will get into like deep theological conversation. And we're not always, as much as we look alike, we're not always like perfectly aligned in every little detail of things. So we're like challenging each other, but we're like both like this, like looking at each other. And I think Alyssa,
longingly in each other's eyes.
Alyssa, I think, snapped the picture, and that picture keeps coming back up. Maybe we can get that picture on this. Maybe
help us out, Jacob.
But it's not the worst picture that Ben's been involved in with that. Him and Brandon Baldwin have a picture that probably should be up here as well. So
Jacob, don't do that.
We're going to get those to you. But like we just hit it off. And we have kids around similar ages. Obviously, Cohen's the oldest of our like family friend group. You guys started coming over. You tried out house church, and that was still when we had like Macon students over there. Talk to me about that. So it seemed like I could be wrong. I don't mean to put words in your mouth. You had relationship with Jesus, and then maybe around the move time, you started stepping into like listening and hearing from the Spirit and like walking in the Spirit. And maybe there's a little bit of there's another level to that, I guess. Is what, what was that like for you, maybe entering into house church, and what was the Lord also doing in your own walk? And it ultimately led to a pretty awesome word that you got that led to Train Up Academy.
Yeah, man, you're doing a great job just leading through this conversation.
Yeah, I'm just helping you through it. Yeah, thanks.
Luckily, I thought about this one. Definitely my dad was, you could consider him a minister.
Yeah.
he traveled all over the world speaking and doing different things. I got to travel with him, which was awesome. But grew up in an awesome home. Great mom and dad, loved each other. We went to church every Sunday. If we weren't traveling, to churches where he would perform. So grew up in that. I actually went to an Assemblies of God church, which is more Pentecostal.
Yep.
And was surrounded with people waving flags and dancing and speaking in tongues.
Spiritual gifts all over the place. Yeah.
But it was funny. Like, I never was really introduced to the idea of the Holy Spirit, like growing up there, other than that, seeing it. But like, I never understood it or understood what it was, how it was different or what. And so I'd say, like, in my mid 20s, that was something that was started to become impressed upon me. It's like between 26 and 30, like I would just be driving. I was just, for whatever reason, just interested more in starting to listen to more worship music. And I just remember like crying all the time. Like, I was like driving, and like it would really hit differently than it had in the past. And I remember, like, even in those moments, like I was like, this is different. This is cool. Like, what is happening? Yeah. And like, even seeing, as I was driving, like seeing myself and envisioning myself like praying over people in different areas with like or something that was welling up. Yeah. And it made me press into like, what is this Holy Spirit? In general. Then when I came, we started having conversations around that. You were like really in tune with, and had some really good verses to just like speak over what was happening. Yeah. And it was really convicting, or maybe not convicting, but just like opened my eyes to like this other thing that is obviously evident throughout Scripture. Yeah. The one verse that comes to mind is like, the same Spirit that lives in us, it's the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead. And when Jesus said, like, I'm sending you a helper. Yeah. Right. Like, that's better than I. And like, that's what he said. Like, that's a huge
he said deal. It's better if I leave.
Better if I leave.
That's crazy. Yeah. Like, and I send you the helper. Anyway, keep going.
So like, I loved, and I was getting into this, this idea of like, what is spiritual formation with Train Up, and my background in psychological warfare, like, was coming into this as I was thinking about like the devil and deception and how that, just the science behind all of that, was kind of all coming into one. And I think, this idea of what the church is was something that came up at one point in my research. It's like, what is the church? Is it what we see today? Is that like, is that what's best to optimize development for the goal that we have for each individual Christian who is supposed to be an apprentice of Jesus? Yeah. And so, not bashing the institutional church, because I do think it's necessary and needed, but there seemed to be this gap of like this deeper development, so to speak. And I really saw that because my dad was doing home churches too. A little bit of a different emphasis than what we do, but still similarly, like I saw the potential that was there. And like I was like, I felt called to do that. Yeah. And so, I came to see some of your house churches, and then you had like 50 people in there. And then as soon as I came, like, everybody left. So
it just happened.
So I think there's a common.
Alyssa brought that up last night.
Did she really?
That is so funny. All right, I'm going to give you guys. All right, that's not true. They were not the reason that people left. They were the reason. No, we ran every Tuesday night. We'd have our house open, and we were in relationship at that time in community with college students. I can give you the whole background on that, but we were in community with them. And it kind of grew and grew and grew, and we'd worship and we just practice the gifts in the Spirit and encourage each other and pray over each other and read Scripture together. And it was just a really cool, awesome season of life. As I got more invested in Hanover, as I got more invested in the leadership coaching that I do with my brother, like, my community kind of shifted. And that group phased out. And then we also had kids. Yeah. Everyone else had kids. And
so maybe we can blame Cohen because he ran them all away.
Right.
Running through screaming in the middle of our...
But like, the college students don't want to be around. Like, we have 8 boys right now in our family friend group. And we have 2 girls on the way. Finally coming. We got a girl coming, Scarlett, coming in August. Ward and Kinsey, our other great friends, they have a little girl coming. I'm not telling you the name. They're holding that close to their chest. But we had all these kids running around, and then it kind of phased out. That being said, what was the experience like for you stepping into that house church? Because you'd come from this charismatic church. You'd been, and we weren't waving flags in our
but I'm
house.
hoping
We would have allowed it.
Right.
We would have allowed
that.
You
would have.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah. We should have.
What was that like for you? Like, what were your thoughts when you came into that? What was that?
The first time it was like, wow, what I loved, and again, there's just some different like verses and statements you've made that have really stuck out over the years. But like this idea of like stepping out boldly.
Yeah.
And so like, even though I grew up in that type of church, like I never stepped out in it. I never did anything in that regard. Like I never tried to speak publicly, prophesy, or speak in tongues or anything like that. So it was really cool to see what that looked like and how you were kind of organizing it in a way, facilitating be the better word for that. And the idea of like, it's true that everybody has these different gifts and like that we should be bold and stepping out and giving ourselves a space to really like develop those further.
Yeah.
So I loved just the concept of it. And so then I was willing to, as you know, when I read the Bible, like those things align like that. I see it. I see what it says. And it's like, we should be doing maybe some more of that. Like, and it was really cool over the course of probably like 2 to 3 years. It was between like 21 and 24, like really the closest I had been where I was really more in tune with hearing from the word. And really when that happened, it was when I became more active in the faith. And so I think that's what we see in the institutional church, is that we're passively receiving all the time, every Sunday, once a week. So we're passively receiving, and that's good, but it stops there and we don't actively step out in our giftings in other ways. And so like when you have me some days for the football team, go up and let's pray over the lockers, like those types of things I continue to do. And like, it was actually when I started praying out loud. I'd listen to worship, I'd pray out loud as I was getting into this like really cool, deeper sense of abiding in the spirit and like being just more in tune with just promptings that I was feeling. And there was a couple moments where those promptings, like I would pray over somebody over text if I'm walking around the neighborhood, and like, not always, but like a couple times, like I think those really hit home with somebody. And so like before then, none of that type of things had happened. And that's actually one of the regrets that I have, is like, I think if I meet Jesus, I think you've talked about this before, there was a period of life where I just wasn't very active. Like, and I just think I'm going to look back and he's going to show me what could have been, in a sense. Like, these are just the moments you might have missed. Like, this is all the potential impact you could have had. Like, I'm not saying he would say that or not, but I just look back at those moments that were missed that I could have had a bigger impact in my community or groups of men, especially that I was with and in close relationship with, that could have changed their life. And so it's been cool to be in this, just with you kind of leading the charge there, is learning more about that and the impact that it's had.
That's so cool. Like I tell people this, I am spoiled with community right now. Like what we're able to have with the 4 families that kind of meet regularly, there's intentionality in. Brandon's talked about this. Brandon and Hannah do a great job of leading new community. And what they've talked about is like, hey, Sunday's good, but like the change happens in circles in the living room. And what they do a good job of is kind of like pushing people like to small groups, because if we just sit on Sundays and just receive and we don't live it out, then it doesn't really become our own. And it's an opportunity for it to become our own. And more importantly, yes, you can have a Sunday community, but to have a living room community is just different. To have a life community is different, where you're actually diving into each other's lives and you're seeing each other more than just one day a week, but you're able to be around each other and do life together. So I am spoiled with that. I know you feel the same way. We talk about that regularly at our house on Tuesday. So you started living this out and you started walking this out. You started going on these prayer walks, and eventually it led to the time where you felt like the Lord's presence was so, and you say you didn't hear the audible voice, but talk me through what that moment was like for you.
So it was actually somebody who was what they titled themselves as a prophet, like someone who prophesies. And they would travel to different churches, I guess, and just kind of use their gifting to, just for different churches. And so his name was Jay. He came and he was there. I think you were there too, to the new community group. And he spoke over Alyssa and I. And I could pull out what it said. It's in my phone. It was this list of things. And one of those was that I'd be working with young people and I'd be helping with the next generation. And there was this couple other things too. And it was funny. Luckily, they recorded it. So I went back, listened to the recording. And immediately Brandon called me. He's like, hey, what did you think about the word that you got the other night? I'm like, honestly, like, it was a little weird.
He got it wrong.
Yeah, I don't like, well, the first question I asked him was like, what have you told him about me? How does he know me? Because there were some things that were right on, things that I was kind of like already doing. And he's like, I didn't tell him anything. Like, when I saw him is when you saw him type of deal. So I was like, yeah, I mean, I thought it could have been a little cooler. Like, I would have loved something like really, so it's just funny that initial conversation as Brandon kind of walked me through dissecting, debriefing that moment. But I wrote it down, and then I went on a prayer walk, and for a week there, I just prayed over those things. And I was just like, hey, is this something, Lord, that you're speaking over to me? Like, this is what somebody else has said, but I'd like it to be affirmed. And it was on a Saturday, and I was walking around the neighborhood, just listening to worship music and praying over that. And it was, again, it was an audible voice in my head. And it said, first of all, I had this like wave of emotion that hit me in that moment. And I fell to my knees in the middle of basically like the street.
Yeah.
So people saw me.
Yeah.
And I'm just crying. And the word was, I will not lose the next generation. But the emotions that I felt were threefold. One was like, I was angry. It felt like how he felt with how the next this current generation, the next generation are being deceived. Mm. It was like true anger. I was angry. I was sad at just how they were living their lives and just like the brokenness that exists in that generation, the next generation. And then there was this like resoluteness. It's like, I am not going to let this happen anymore. Yeah. And it was like, again, audible, a thought. It was a loud thought. That's probably the best way I can describe it. But it was the most like marked moment in my life where I really had an experience like that. Yeah. And so that's when I kind of like, I called Brandon. I was like, hey, this just happened. And I was told this. And
I remember exactly where it was. You called me too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's so many things within that. Like, so Train Up started as this father-son thing. And we do believe, like, we are aligned in that. Like, we do believe there's a boy crisis where men, specifically fathers, have maybe checked out over the past however many years, and what it's led to with these boys. I mean, you could give those stats, I'm sure off the top of your head, but the increase in depression, anxiety, ADHD, how many go to jail, and that all ties back to like these fatherless homes and how important that is. So we're both passionate about helping restore that in the right way. And then we have all these things in between. You're being led by the Spirit. You're falling more in love with Jesus. You're stepping out in faith. You're stepping out boldly. You're growing in this practice of pursuing him. And he says, I will not lose the next generation. And it was actually all around a time where we were like, hey, what are we going to do together? How are we going to align our gifts? That was around the time. So like, I knew, like, I was already working with the youth, and then like for us to partner together on that just seemed like an awesome opportunity. Again, going back to like our skill sets complement each other, and I was like, man, if we could do this would be awesome. So we started thinking through what this would look like. We started brainstorming, and it eventually leads to Train Up Academy, which is not a father-son thing. It leads to a co-ed school. And I'll say this too, for you to even like be open to that originally and to call it under this Train Up brand and this thing, it shows an unbelievable amount of humility to bring other people in who might not originally started with this father-son thing. So it's you, it's me, it's Alyssa, it's Lauren, and we are all starting the school together, and we're starting Train Up Academy together. Talk to me, because Alyssa was the first one. She claims she was the first one to stumble upon the Acton methodology. Tell me how Would you disagree with that? This is going on record. Alyssa's going to listen to this.
She probably won't listen.
Then you're fine. Yeah.
I'll give her the credit.
My dad will probably listen, and he's going to support the show.
Heck yeah, I love Todd.
He's the best.
Todd Rogers.
So you guys stumble upon Acton, and tell me what appealed to you most about the Acton methodology, knowing your background, knowing like you knew boys had checked out, fathers had checked out. And we also talked about how there's believers who had checked out. And there's this idea of passivity kind of permeating through this whole thing that kind of gets us excited, is like restoring the passion and intentionality back to things.
Yeah.
What excited you about Acton?
Man, I think, yes, again, going back to the boy crisis, there's the root causes were the 3 Ds. You kind of talked to this a bit, but one of the Ds was disengagement. Boys really disengaged from our traditional cultural institutions that were built to kind of develop and train. And public schools in particular, I feel like are really, for many boys, a bad, it's not optimized for their development and growth, which is how different they are in many ways. So when I was thinking about that, I was looking, it's like, where would they be more successful? And that is where this Acton methodology kind of came into. It's like, wow, that's really cool, with the more freedom that they would get.
Yeah. And
this idea of the hero's journey of being on an adventure.
Yeah.
Like that being at the heart of what the school is about, like calling them up to more.
Yeah.
And there's so much more there, like even the background of like, as I was looking into the tactical ways that they do that, just based off of, again, the PSYOP stuff that I do, and like with the captain's coach, like learning more about skill acquisition. How does somebody develop skills? Like what's the first principles around that? All of those lined up with the general directional approach that Acton was kind of taking.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to like the disengagement piece, we saw that we talked about that with fathers. We talked about that in church, but we even see that in school right now. It's this disengagement piece, and it's almost this way to pawn off responsibility for somebody else to get you to learn and memorize this information, instead of putting us in the driver's seat and being active learners. And that's what excited me about that when I'm thinking about my kids, and I'm thinking about Caleb, Lucas, and now Scarlett. Like, I want them to gain confidence. And I know the only way to gain confidence is by to put them in a position where they can actually experience these minor failures, these struggles, these setbacks, and being able to persevere through that. So the other thing that drew me in, and when we started talking through it, when I heard the Acton methodology, it sounded so close to New Testament and New Covenant to me. When I think about the way that Jesus taught, you mentioned like bringing somebody on an adventure. That's the way he got his disciples. He wasn't like, hey, here's what the next 3 years are going to look like. Here's what you're signing up for. He's like, hey, come and see. Come and see. And what, like, you can't, unless you're Jesus, it's hard to say that and convince somebody to like join. He's like, come and see. Come and see what we're going to do. You know, there's a couple people that had great rebuttals too. They were like, Lord, where are we going to sleep? I just need to know the sleeping situation. And he comes back and says, foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. I'm like, goodness, you're a terrible salesman. like, that's not good. Like, tell them like, hey, we're going to get this hotel. It's going to be tough for a couple weeks, whatever it may be. Another person says, hey, Jesus, can I go bury my father first? He goes, let the dead bury the dead. Come on, we got stuff to do. It's this adventure. It's this now. It's this calling. And then with Acton, it's this adventure. It's putting them in the driver's seat. These disciples that were following Jesus were actively practicing and failing and learning by experience. And it just models perfectly what I feel like the new covenant is like, of this practicing your gifts, which leads us to think about Train Up Academy. When did this idea start? Train Up Academy. Like, do you remember the year? Do you remember the moment we were like, I remember texting you about it, and we had like texts back and forth like all day. What year was that when we were?
Yeah, I think it was like end of 22, early 23.
Yeah. And we started diving into this, and you started doing awesome. Like, You've done all of the groundwork in like setting this up and applying to be an Acton school and getting everything that you could imagine, everything that's not my skill set. You like set everything up. And even more importantly, and what's worth noting, like we are not a boys only school. We are a co-ed school. And it's been something cool for me because I've had this word over me and Lauren that like we were going to have a daughter. Yeah. And like that was my main thing. I was like, hey, we're going to have I just know eventually it's coming. And we had like different prophetic words spoken over us that we were going to have a girl. Her name was going to be Scarlett. And I'm like thinking like, how can we build her up in the same way and do the same problems happen with women as they do men? And obviously I can't speak to that as well. But thinking about this school to building up the next generation and coinciding that with the fact that your word from the Lord was, I will not lose the next generation. It wasn't next generation of boys.
Right.
What allowed you to kind of like morph this train up thing into allowing like, all right, this is now not just going to be for boys. Now this is open to boys and girls. What was that process like? How helpful was Alyssa in that process with it? I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but like, what was that process like?
Yeah, I think the big thing, because this was a big deal between my dad and I, because what we didn't want to have is what's called mission creep. Like when you try to solve everybody's problems or multiple problems, like it's really hard to do that. Oftentimes you don't solve anything.
Yeah. So
we were really concerned about mission creep. But I continue to go back to like not what I wanted, but what was the word that was given to me.
Yeah.
And that was the next generation piece. It wasn't just, and you know, there's a boy crisis. There's a girl crisis too. They struggle in different ways as well. Like, and my heart breaks for them too. I just happen to have 3 boys, right? And that's been the heart behind that. Is like and all that research was like, how am I going to be a good father? Like, how am I going to raise my boys to be good men?
Yeah.
So I'm not as. That was just the focus, I guess.
Yeah, that you put all of your research into the boy crisis and being open to allowing this other, allowing it to be a co-ed school, allowing to have girls come in, and then even like having these women in our lives who we could talk for hours about, but you having Alyssa, me having Lauren, and seeing their heart break for young girls and seeing their heart being open to having this be a co-ed school. And at the end of the day, what my heart is, I know your heart is, we want to see the Holy Spirit light people up. And we want to see them step out into their God-given calling, right? And I envision these communities as these little pieces, these little communities of just like heaven on earth. And the cool thing is like we want to train up the believers to have these skill sets where they can eventually be in places of influence to step back into the fight. Because I think there's been a sense of believers being sidelined in that a little bit. But it's like, no, you have awesome gifts that are meant to go impact the kingdom, that are meant to go impact the world around us, which just has made me so pumped up about it.
Yeah, me too.
Inspired up about it. But talking about this, we're in year 1, okay? Year 1, which no startup is easy.
Yeah.
No startup is easy. What would you say to future parents who know that like, hey, we're an early school. We're not proven yet. What would you say? Why is it worth them signing up for Train Up Academy? What could they expect in our academy?
Well, that's funny. I go back to I think our new recruiting call just needs to be come and see.
Yeah. Come and see. Just
don't
trust
worry
us.
about it. Trust us.
Don't even,
Just come and see.
Don't even poke.
Follow. Yeah. This is going to be the adventure of your life. So.
Yes. Which
and
there's
we'll
a
see
truth.
What happens.
Yeah. We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah. What would you say to these future families? They would be paying money to come to Train Up Academy. Yeah. Why is it worth it for them? Why is it worth it for them to do this amongst the other options out there? Why would you say?
Well, my first question is, what do you care about? What is at the pinnacle of your hierarchy of values? Do you believe that the Bible is true? And if so, what does that look like? How's that modeled in your decisions? Because I have a hard time believing that any child would find a better place than Train Up Academy to actually come to know Jesus.
Yeah.
with the type of model that it is, with the freedom that is involved in that, the responsibility, like the call to adventure, with you being there and me being there daily, I just find it hard to believe that if that's the thing that you care most about. And what the problem is, I think we see school as something that is focused on those skills, reading, writing, math, which is obviously important, but we really see it as this like training ground for something more.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's been hard to evaluate and assess for, but I know that all four of us who are in there daily see these awesome, the growth that happens with some of these learners that are in there, where they are at age 5. Like, one of the things that I was a little concerned about is like when we have training time and you have all these young, masterful learners, right, sitting in a circle, and we're asking them to like listen to the Lord and like worship together, and like, what do you hear? Was going to be the crazy things that we were going to hear. I have yet to be in one of those and not been had my mind blown at the things they have said and how true they have been.
Yeah.
And like, just not really outside of what the Bible is there. This is when we have things of like prophecy or words or anything, like they need to come back and they need to be accurate to what Scripture says. So that is the foundation, right? But the things they're saying are like totally in line with what, like that's not been the issue, right? So it's just been cool to see that, where Cohen like comes home one day, we're about to leave for a trip. He's like, hey, let's all pray together. And let's pray over.
Your son at 6, 7 years old.
6 years old says, hey, he initiated something really important. Like we were leaving for a time. He's like, let's, he said like, let's ask for God's provision and protection. I'm like,
gosh,
what? Gosh. I should have been the one that did that.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And just seeing even, we're still working on like the maturation for some of those young boys. And we have some ideas there for how we can do that. But like in so many ways, like seeing these really immature boys who started really immaturely, like take that seriously, and like them praying over one another, like, and really stepping out and doing things boldly.
Yeah.
Like, so my question for a parent, bring it back to your question, is like, what do you care about?
Yeah.
How important is that?
Yeah.
And I have a hard time believing you're going to find that somewhere else.
Yeah. Getting that experience where they're getting to be in the presence of God. And what we talk about often is like, I don't want my sons and daughter to just know the words on a page. I want them to know the author of Scripture. I want them to know him. Like in John 5, when Jesus says, you study the Scripture, he's criticizing the Pharisees. He's like, hey, you study the Scriptures because you think in them you have eternal life, but you don't come to me. And we want them to put them at the feet of Jesus in those rooms. And then when you do that, the stories come to life. Like Paul talks about, he doesn't need to convince you. He's like, the story itself, what you spoke earlier, the same Spirit that rose Jesus from the dead lives inside of you. You don't need to say that any other way besides that. That'll explain itself. You can just present them with it and let the Lord do his work. And to your point, we think that we initially maybe challenge that, man, these 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old, they're not going to be able to actually do that. They're not mature enough. It's just not true. They actually probably come into it with less insecurities, and they're probably a little bit more real in those moments. I didn't start practicing that till I was 19, 20, 21 years old. And they get to do that then. In my heart, that first thing that you hit on, like that Christ-like character, my heart is that my sons, my daughter would experience Jesus so much earlier than I did. They wouldn't have to wait. They wouldn't miss those opportunities that you were talking about before, that they would step into that earlier and the impact that they would have, and they would practice. So yeah, the hierarchy of values, Christ-like character, meeting Jesus and stepping out into that. That's one of our like 4 desired outcomes.
Yeah.
Tell me another one.
21st century skills.
Why is that important? Why not just do the same exact model that the school's doing right now? I turned out fine.
Yeah.
Why?
It's funny. The I turned out fine thing is it's hard to know what you could have turned out into. and I think about it. I think about like, I think about the 1951 NBA champions. That compared to the 2024 NBA championship team. How different do you think those two are? There's things that we've learned over the past 70 years about how to improve skill acquisition for a sports team. And so we've implemented things all the time to help increase and make things people higher performing. Well, over the past 100 years, science has learned so much about how the brain actually functions and how it works and the type of environment you need to be in to optimize for skill acquisition, but also learning and retention.
Yeah.
And the model we have today in traditional education is an 1880s Prussian model.
Yeah.
And it's just not the best place to be in if you want to be prepared for the 21st century.
Yeah.
Now, I understand why it's that way. I understand why the government schools need to have more oversight and accountability. So I'm not saying like that this would work there. I still think that probably is necessary. But like if I could go through, and I actually have just recently done a video called the Deep Dive into the Models of Learning at Training Academy. So if you want to spend an hour
into the nitty gritty,
boring stuff,
come on,
all of the first principles of how we best learn, that's out there.
Yeah.
But we've just learned a lot. And what we know is like, again, just going back to high level, passive versus active, like passively consuming information is not how we learn best.
Yeah.
So the idea of a teacher, and we're going into this new age where it's going to look different. The type of work we do is going to be different. Like we've got to be ready. Our learners have to be ready. This next generation has to be ready to be adaptable, be able to quickly change, be able to quickly learn, because things are just going to be different. And, just generally speaking, that the one model I'll speak to is the learning pyramid, which just says like, you only retain about 10% of the information that you hear, but you retain 90% of the information that you teach.
Yeah.
But we still teach. We have a teacher up there presenting information all to the same group of people who are all different, who have different motivation factors and interests and passions and goals, who move at different levels, but that's just not the best way to learn.
Yeah.
It just isn't.
Yeah.
And we're going to, and the other one too is like Bloom's model. So Bloom found out that there's like this 2 sigma deviation between somebody who was in like a regular class versus somebody who had a one-on-one tutor. And the question's always been like, how do we get somebody to have this like one-on-one tutor? And now with new technologies and stuff like that's possible. So I do think that this micro school movement is going to continue to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
It's already, there's over 100,000 micro schools across the country, not just Acton, but in general. And we're going to see more of teachers teaching less and becoming facilitators of experiences.
Yeah.
That is how we really learn, is through experience.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to character development, mindset stuff like.
Yeah. One of the things that we did, it was March 18th. We had like a vision night, fundraising night where we brought some different community leaders in. And we just shared with them the heart behind this model, Train Up Academy, the Acton methodology. We just shared with them all the details of that. And what we did is we gave them a 10-question random test of like things that they probably would have remembered in school when they were in the traditional school K through 12. The average score is like 20 or 30% on that, 2 to 3 right out of 10. And so like, I was like poking at them a little bit and I was like, all right, guys, like the chemistry question that we got wrong here, which I probably couldn't even answer, right? I couldn't answer any of this. All right. The chemistry question that we got wrong. How many hours? Let's just say you took 1 year of chemistry in high school. Okay. 1 year of chemistry, and make sure I'm doing this math right. Okay. You have 180 days of school and you take it every other day. So that's 90 days of chemistry. Okay. 90 times 90 minutes. Okay, so like let's say that it's an hour and a half each day, so that's 90 hours, 135 hours of chemistry.
Yeah,
I think that's right. You don't know. All right, I don't know either. All right, 135 hours of chemistry, and you didn't remember a simple question. You don't remember a foundational question. Was that time well spent? 135 hours. Man, at a minimum, like if we just had the option between doing that or practicing our walk with the Lord, between that and leading our classmates and handling conflict resolution, between that and practicing a skill that God has given us, between that and doing a passion project, writing a book. We have one of our learners right now practicing writing a book. Like, which one would you choose? Oh, well, of course I'd choose this. But we are so nervous to step outside of it. And I get it, because there is comfort and there's safety in doing this because everybody else is doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to be one of the first ones to step out and do something that's a little bit different, because some of the rebuttals that we'll get, which I understand, I get, are like, what about reading, writing, math? And I'm like, we still do those, by the way. We believe
important.
They are important. We believe in that. But what we believe is in this hierarchy of values and them understanding these soft skills first, of overcoming, of pushing through struggle, of being able to lead, being able to communicate. Once we can get those, we believe the rate of learning is going to increase dramatically. So it's not that we're not prioritizing. It's not that we don't do these. It's the way that we do these, we believe, is going to increase our ability to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Speak to that for a second. Speak to that rebuttal of core skills. Okay. Within the light of the hierarchy of values, maybe give us a window on what that looks like in our academy and why that will be better in the long run than.
Yeah. Well, I think about, I think I could see some parents be like, oh, that's nice. Like, yeah, I agree with that, but I really want them to read. But when you think about the question of how does somebody develop their character? Like, that's a good question. It's like, what does science say to be true about how somebody's personality and their character, and like, how does that all shaped and formed, and how important is character? Maybe that's the question. And there's a video that I love. I'm blanking on his name. It's another sports kind of like psychologist guy. And he said he had interviewed hundreds of some of the best coaches in the world. They basically came up with this framework. It's like character drives the process, which drives results. Basically, our character, who we are, shapes the things that we do, which ends up being the thing that shapes our results. So the idea is that character is truly at the core of our outcomes in life in many ways. And I won't get into all of the psyop stuff too, but like, it is that important. And the idea of like, when I think about what the Bible says, if that's true, and that's something we believe is true, so how should we live our life? What's true is that anything that we do, we're supposed to lay at the feet of Jesus.
Yeah.
So there's this like narrative out there that says like, oh, you guys are just some like mansy pamsy, like you're letting them do whatever you want. It's like, no, could you imagine everything that we do? Like anything that you hand in, any project that you do, you're laying at the feet of Jesus. Do you understand the type of work ethic that would require?
Yeah.
And the excellence that would be necessary
to
put in front of the one who created the whole universe?
Yeah.
Like that is a big deal.
Yeah.
So that's where I would start. It's like, I think people might be hearing like, oh yeah, they can step on these gifts, but I really want to make sure that they have these. Well, what's fundamental is your character.
Yeah.
It's funny, like Cohen's there. I have not asked him once about how he's done, frankly, in his core skills. I mean, because I see him reading and stuff now, which is really cool. I care most about how is he forming, how's his character forming? And oftentimes we can see that with different behaviors and language that is used, how all of that is espoused is a way to kind of evaluate that in a sense. But like that character piece is a big deal. And I do think, and this is something we'll continue to impress upon the learners, is that like this is not a place to just play around. Like you are here you have a mission, you are on an adventure, and it is important because you have a calling that only you have.
Yeah.
And Jesus is going to hold you accountable to that in a way. Like he's going to he wants you to do that well.
Yeah.
And we want to help to push you to that too.
Yeah. It's not about, maybe one of the differences is that you're hitting on, it's not about just plugging along to the next chapter, to the next grade, and kind of turning in average work. It's about driving excellence in everything that we do. And it's about putting them in this position where like, we want them to drive excellence because they want excellence, not because we want excellence. And in order to do that, you got to push autonomy, you got to push independence. And there is a risk in that because they could just say, I'm not doing this right now. Now, that doesn't mean that's without consequence if they don't do that. If they don't try hard, there's still consequences. There's still structure in place. Freedom is not truly freedom without boundaries. There are clear boundaries. I would actually say that our academy holds people more accountable than less accountable. There's just more freedom and there's more autonomy and there's more independence. But this is the Acton thing, Lord Acton, it's freedom and responsibility are completely intertwined. They're completely intertwined. Full circle, new covenant is all about freedom. Galatians 5:1 says, it is for freedom that Christ has set you free. So no longer allow yourselves to be burdened again by the yoke of slavery. But no one would argue that there is a lack of accountability or responsibility for a New Testament believer, right? It's the Romans 5:20 says, where sin increases, grace increases all the more. Then Paul follows that up by saying, shall we sin that grace may abound? He says, absolutely not. How can you who have died to this old way of life go back to it any longer? So this freedom and responsibility thing are completely intertwined, and it actually calls them into more, and where we feel like maybe the traditional school calls them into average. We want to call them into exercising their gifts. Talk me through, all right, I hear all that. That sounds great. It sounds great on paper.
Yeah.
What does it actually look like? How do they read? How do they learn to read? How do they learn to write? How do they learn to do math? What does that look like? Like, I hear all that. Sounds cool. Tell me, what does it look like?
Yeah, just quickly, because the character component to it, one of the things we talk about a lot is identity. And it's really the question of who am I is something that we really talk about, because it's almost like fundamental to character. So I just wanted to make that one more comment too. Is like, we ask them every morning, is like, who are you? I'm a conqueror. I'm an overcomer. I'm a victor, not a victim. Yeah. And that like mindset shift that is necessary for all these other things that we're doing in life, that process that we undertake, is really important.
Heck yeah.
So for reading, writing, math, basically there's this gamification that we have within the environment. So they are kind of competing, and everything's gamified. There's trackers all over the wall and they're working towards these goals that they have. And all of the goals are intertwined into the things that they actually care about. And so for reading, like, we have a lot of these AI platforms, so to speak. There's things like Lexia, which is in the public school system too. There's, for math, there's things like Dreambox and some other platforms like that, Khan Academy. And basically all those things are gamifying the learning experience, and it's self-paced. So they get to go at the pace of mastery for themselves. So what happens often in the public education is you've got a teacher teaching 30 learners, and they're all going at one pace. So even though if you didn't understand something, you're still moving forward often. You just get the D-, you haven't mastered that concept, and you're still moving forward. What this allows is for that one-on-one tutor to kind of be the case, where now, if you don't understand anything, you're there until you get it, because it's that important. And that's where that idea of like failing and struggle, I think is really important, because sometimes the learners give up, and they might give up for a day or two. And that's where the guides are there to be like, okay, hey, like, what's happening? Why are you giving up? Is that who you are?
Yeah.
Are you somebody who gives up, or are you an overcomer and conqueror? Yeah. What's true? Yeah. Because that's our overarching question right now, is what is true? Yeah. And that question is fundamental to all that we do. So those are some tactical things from reading, writing, and math. There's the platforms. There's this gamification approach in general that we take just to make things more fun and engaging. It's all self-paced. So yeah. All right. I love that. All right. So what about the immediate rebuttal that I've gotten, that I'm sure you've gotten? You're telling me you're on a screen for how long? Are you on a screen all day just learning this stuff? Like, how long are they on screens? I want to get them away from screens. Originally, when I heard about the school, I thought it was like more active. And how long are they on this stuff? They're only on there for about an hour to an hour and a half per day. Now they can be on it longer if they want, but that's kind of like the time box that we've given. So it's an hour, the 60 to 90 minutes per day. And I get the issue around like screen time. We don't watch a lot of TV at our house, and like we don't give cell phones. Like that's all not anything that we do in our own home. It's hard to not utilize technology for something that can literally like double or triple the outcomes. How much more quickly that you can learn. Everything is self-paced. You got an AI tutor there that's basically kind of helping you. There's data around that. It's fun. Like the learners like it. That's the only technology piece that we have to it. Other than that, they are outside a ton. So they're spending an hour, sometimes 2 hours outside every day, just whether it's with LTAD that you lead or even the unstructured play, which is really important. There's so much research that's going out right now about the importance with how kids today, everything that they're in is structured, from sports to home life. Like there's no unstructured play that this next generation gets to experience for themselves, where they get to fight with each other and not have a parent in the middle of it intermediating it for themselves or for them. So unstructured play is really important, but they get outside a ton. They have the project-based learning in the afternoon where they get to work in a group, collaborating on building things.
But what if that doesn't look perfect for 5 to 9 year olds? And like, what happens if they're not doing that exactly right all the time?
Yeah. One of the questions I always come back to, I truly have no fear that my son is going to read. Like, I think some parents fear that he's not going to. Fear that he would not. He's going to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's funny. One of the parents that came in at one point in time and they observed, and then I was there too, just because I wanted to see what she was seeing.
Yeah.
And what our takeaways were from seeing the exact same thing was totally different. Like I saw this awesome messiness where one of the leaders, it didn't look great. Like I get why she initially was like, hey, this is too unstructured, it's too messy. Unfortunately, she didn't get to see the next day when the same thing happened and the guide was there and was able to bring the group out. She said, hey, let's pause. Let me ask you all some questions. Let's come out and let's reflect on how your team is doing. And because again, you don't learn leadership, right? Not really, you don't learn it in a classroom. You learn it by doing it.
Correct.
You learn it by doing it. And that's what all these, same thing with conflict resolution, like these 21st century soft skills that are needed, like you got to do it. And the ones that do it and get feedback on it consistently are the ones that are going to really get better at it. So what she missed out was on the next day, there was this conversation that Lauren facilitated very well, I might add.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
She is great. We love having her. And it was so cool. It was in those moments where one of the boys that was leading, he was constantly like total victim. It's like, they were doing this and that, they were doing that, and it was their fault. And so we just paused like, hey, I wrote down what he said. And I met with him afterwards, and Lauren said something similar. It's like, hey, I want to read you what you said. And then I asked him, I was like, do you see any like
red flags?
Red flags, thank you. Like, do you see any red flags here? He's like, yeah, I'm blaming everybody else. I'm like, yeah, you are. Like, what do you think about that? It's like, I should take ownership. It's like, that's exactly right. Now, if I were to give him a class about ownership, I don't think that would have connected the same way, because we all have everybody knows the right answer in the classroom, especially around these types of things. But it's when you're actually out there doing it. And this is why when I was meeting with you, with captain's coach and the Hanover football, I was like, hey, I'm sending this email. I couldn't do any better because you're the one that's like in it. Right? Yeah. So I'm going to give you these thoughts. I don't think that I'm better or anything. Yeah. I was constantly like my wording too. I feel like, because it's just hard when we're in the middle of it. We have these blind spots, and what's best is for you to experience it, have somebody there to provide feedback to you.
Feedback is so important.
Yeah. That's the 70-20 model, which is what I love. So 70% of how we best learn is by doing it, 20% is feedback, and 10% is like a recipe. Yeah. Like instead of, the learners aren't just trying to figure this all out on their own. They have these recipes of success that we provide, like these models and first principles that help them in the right direction. And then, they might fail, it might get messy, but that's how we learn. That's what all of science shows to be true for the most part, is like,
learn by doing.
You learn by doing, and you learn by we do learn through failure.
Yes.
And so I think a lot of people, some parents who initially came in, espoused some things that I don't know if that were really true or not. Maybe not.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I would ask parents, like, hey, you say that you're okay with the messiness. You say that these things are things that you like, but like when you see it, what's going to be your response? Or are you going to be somebody who's like, no, I have to control this?
Yeah.
Or is it's just what's your initial reaction?
Yeah.
Maybe kind of going to be like.
So. Yeah. When I think about the way even our high schoolers learn, like on the football team, I can teach them and write up on a board the plays. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right, everybody good. And they can even draw it. And they could draw the same thing that I draw. And then we go out and do it. and it looks terrible.
Yeah.
It looks awful. We should just go and do it. We should just go and do it. And when we started going on this acting journey, it started changing the way that I coach. So instead of me taking hour-long install meetings every Tuesday during the off season to install our offense and install our defense, and all this time, I record a video and I show film, and they watch this on their own and they can study it. And now we're going to go practice it the next day.
Yep.
I installed an entire blitz package. Anybody with football will know that's not an easy thing to do over a video. And then they ran it correctly the next day. There were some minor things that we got to tweak, but the next day, without having to commit another meet, we already leveraged technology to be able to advance learning and get into learning by doing. So by us having these core skills that are gamified learning through these apps and through these platforms for 60 to 90 minutes a day, well, the rest is practicing the things that we think are important. There's also something called drop everything and read. There's DEAR, where they get to sit down, they just get to read something they love and read something they really want to read. It's not, hey, read this and give me a report on it. It's like, what do you want to read? It's how your son ended up learning how to read better through reading Dogman. He saw his friends reading it.
Yeah, the social influence.
Correct. And the thing is, we want to put our learners, I want to put my sons and daughter in the position to practice. Practice. I became more excited about reading when I learned that it actually impacted the way that I thought, and it impacted the way that I was a business leader, the way I was a leader on the football team. That's when I became passionate about it. What if we could allow these young people to experience that passion earlier? What if we could do that? What if there wasn't the 135 hours of wasted time? What if we actually sat out and we planned a school, an academy with the end goal in mind and drove everything towards that, and understanding that day one of practice is going to look messy. And so is day two. So is day three. Think about the first time you ever gave a public speech. Think about the first time you ever stepped out in any leadership role. It looked messy, but messiness does not point to the fact that it's not working. It actually points to the fact that it is working, and we're going to grow through that, and it develops the confidence.
Yeah, the one thing that comes to mind is this guy's, I don't remember his name, but it's called Train Ugly. I think we talked about this before. And I think it's really good for us to think through in this idea too. And the idea is basically what sports psychology has come to, skill acquisition maybe has come to find out, is like when coaches try to do things really in a controlled fashion, like a lot of drills, practice in its entirety looks really nice and neat, that does not transfer as well as something that's called random. So it's block training and random training. And the random training doesn't look as nice and neat. It's messier. But the question is, what transfers? What transfers to the field and to our performance? And that's the same question that I would ask to people that are interested in thinking differently about education. Is like, what do you think transfers best? Is it this thing that looks nice and neat where everybody is in a chair and they're listening, and or is it this thing that's maybe looks a little bit messier but is backed by first principles of how we best learn? And what's going to transfer to the things that we want, like the outcomes that we want in life? And so I think that's a good model to connect the dots between sports and what we're doing with education too.
It's perfect. There's so many different things that we could dive into in the details of Train Up Academy, the active methodology. Like, we have guides and we have not teachers. We have guides, we don't have teachers, and these guides are constantly asking questions and getting the learner to be in an active state of learning instead of a passive state of learning. They're not force feeding information. They're not answering questions. They are answering questions with questions to let them dive deeper into that process. We haven't even talked. There's so many different things. And I want you guys, if you guys are listening, this sparks your interest at all, go dive deeper into this. There's no way we could explain every little detail of our academy over an hour or two podcast show, whatever it may be, but dive deeper into this. But we haven't even talked about the LTAD that we do, the long-term athletic development, and why we think that's important, whether someone becomes an athlete or not, right? That's important to be able to develop confidence through play and be able to move your body and to be able to be strong. Like the spiritual, mental, physical, it all ties together. We should not be average physically. We should train to be excellent in what we do. Whatever we do it with all of our heart. There's the passion projects. There's the exhibitions that we have. Of all the things that we do, okay, what excites you most? Or let me ask this. Let me rephrase this. What moments have excited you most from year one? Give me some couple stories that excited you most from year one that you've seen. Evidence of like this works.
Man,
I put you on the spot. So
no, yeah. I mean, I think even in the early days, I do love the messiness, like especially when it comes to the community. So in the first session, there's what's called Build the Tribe, and what they're doing is they're figuring it out in some ways on their own. So they've got to build or create like a contract, basically this like whole governance system around how they are going to act and who they're going to be. They're creating this identity. And
wait, the learners are in charge of this.
The learners are in charge of this.
Wow.
Yes. And it does, it didn't look as messy as I thought it would be, which was cool. But like, there were definitely times where like people were arguing. But what was cool to me was there's one boy in particular comes to mind. He's a great leader. He was so passionate. They were trying to figure out one day, like, what to do. Like they were trying to figure out, they were doing like they were taking a video for the project. It was a project they were working on. And they wanted to know if they should do the video inside or outside and what they should bring. And you would have thought that this was the biggest deal to them. And one learner in particular was like, he was certain that there was this one way that they needed to do it. And nobody else really thought that. And he stood up and he tried to persuade the group as to why his way was the right way.
Yeah. And
those are the moments that like really excite me.
Yeah.
That a lot of people like that I couldn't say, hey, on this sheet in terms of like how I would evaluate, right? The soft skills are harder to evaluate, but like those are the moments that really excite me because I was like, man, this is where the magic happens. It's like in this messiness, in this arguing while they're trying to debate about what's right and what's good and what they should do. And like, this is not happening in other places.
Yeah.
Where somebody cares that much, number one.
Yeah.
And gets the opportunity to actually try to persuade and influence a group of people at 7 years old.
Yeah.
8 years old. And like, to me, that's one that comes to mind of like those moments that happen all the time. And I think about how important that skill is as we think about what the future of work will be like and what are those 21st century skills we're going to need. Yeah. It's going to be people that can really lead and to bring community together. Like that, all of that is something that I'm excited for because we're going to build some great leaders through this process.
No doubt.
That are going to change the world. And it's because they're doing things that don't maybe look great in terms from the outside. There's arguing, debating that's happening. It's a little messy, but like that's how it's developed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the stories that I think of, like I get to be involved in leading the LTAB, which is long-term athletic development. And again, we want to do that excellently. Like we want to challenge them, but similar philosophy, you learn through play, right? So like we're trying to create these organized games that push athleticism without maybe a learner actually knowing that they're becoming more athletic. So like you're doing obstacle courses, like one of the things that we'll do that they actually love. And I can't imagine like a bunch of adults playing this right now and like getting excited about it, which is just so fun. They get so pumped up about it. But like to work upper body strength, instead of just doing push-ups, we're gonna play bear crawl tag. So like we're gonna get in a circle and there's this big circle. One of them's got a noodle and they're basically like in a 3-point crawl position. They're going around, they're trying to tag each other and they're trying to, and whoever gets out, it's got to get out and do some push-ups before they come back in. There's like, and they ask for that. They helped me create this thing called Titan Ball, which is like essentially capture the flag on steroids. It's like this like intense capture the flag thing. But they are getting this opportunity to physically train in the same stuff that we're talking about. And we create competition through that. So like one of the things in our school is like we have these different badges. So we have badge systems, like when they excel in certain things, when they prove mastery in reading, writing, math, they get badges, they get awards. One of the things that we have is the LTAD badge. So one of the things that we track is something called the Fit 5. And there are 5 different exercises, like simple ones that they probably do in a traditional school, like a wall sit. There's a bar hang. There's push. There's all. We did a wall sit the other day, and this learner wanted to beat the record for a wall sit. So she sits on that wall in a wall sit position, 90 degrees. This is a 9-year-old who is not like a professional running back. This is a 9-year-old. Sits on the wall for 4 minutes and 50 seconds. And then was not satisfied with that. The next day I come back, she goes, Coach Sam, I want to beat that goal. She did a wall sit for 7 minutes. I am not kidding. I was there. She did it for 7 minutes because you're creating this environment of not just like pushing people along and creating average outcomes. You're pushing excellence. Towards the end of the year, I've been able to start seeing this more. When I come in, they're excited to show me their progress in Washika and Lexia. They're like, Coach Sam, I did this, I did this, I did this. Like, because you're pushing excellence. And again, it might look messy in the beginning, middle, and end. It might look messy throughout it, but you're pushing this stuff. But with the LTAS specifically, you get to see these young people get so jacked up about getting stronger and getting better. And I guarantee you, our gym class produces better outcomes than a traditional gym class, partly because I'm running it.
Of course.
But like, you want to talk about actually training athleticism, not specializing in like necessarily certain skills. Like we're not trying to become the best quarterback at 5 years old, but we want to become a great athlete. So we're training athleticism. And man, like I hope these learners end up playing Hanover Hawks one day. That's something that's excited me. I also get to lead training time. Training time is our worship time. You hit on this earlier. One, seeing them engaged in it is a mystery.
Yeah.
They know the presence of the Lord is there. They can sense that in that environment. And then them speaking words over each other has been really cool. So like we'll have worship music playing and we'll say like, hey, let's ask the Lord if he has an encouraging word for somebody in here. And let's go around, let's speak encouraging words over people. So like, they'd be like, all right, we're going to speak over Mr. Ben right now. Let's have an encouraging word from them. And there's been learners that have looked them and said like, hey, I think the Lord is saying that you are strong, wise, and courageous. Someone spoke that over Cohen because Cohen's name means wise, courageous warrior. Right? And they spoke that over him. And it's like, what other 6-year-old is doing that?
Yeah.
Right? Like we speak words over each other for our birthdays. So if it's someone's birthday, that person sits in a chair, we lay hands on them and pray over them and speak encouraging words. And I got to look at this 5-year-old and say like, hey, I think the Lord's saying that you are a fighter and you are going to fight for time with him. And you're going to fight for relationship with him. And you're going to be a worshiper at his feet. And she just started like welling up. And she was like tears of joy. And I was like, hey, that is the Holy Spirit right now. Like what you feel, I want you to take note of this moment is the Holy Spirit in this room right now. That's what you're feeling right now. And for them to experience that in school, man, that's exciting. That's exciting. And I get the rebuttal. I get it because it's different. It's different. There's safety and security in doing this thing that's already been done for hundreds of years. But when we're looking at what's necessary and we're looking at the end goal in mind, I just think there's no better place for my sons and my daughter than Train Up Academy. And there's not many people that are going to put more attention to detail in this and improve at the rate that we're going to improve in this year to year. And we're going to continue to get better. And I couldn't imagine 4 better people to do this together with you, me, Lauren, and Alyssa. And then the families that we have on board right now that are the courageous ones that have stepped out, that have stuck through it when things were hard. Like I cannot think of a better community that we want to do this with. And we are just excited about what's to come. And we're looking for more people to join in on that. Anything, like if you had to say anything else to kind of like wrap that up, Train Up Academy. And then I got 2 more quick questions for you to wrap up the Coach Sam show.
I mean, it's hard to follow you.
I know. I get it. I get that.
No, I mean, I go back to like, not to bring up again the PSYOP, psychological warfare stuff, but like what is true is such an important question. Like I think we're all, in many ways, it's easy to be deceived.
Yeah.
And I think that parents should really do two things. It's really, really go back and think like, what is true?
Yeah.
And where does that sit on my hierarchy of values?
Yeah.
Like what do I want for my child?
Yeah.
What I really want them to be able to do. And I really feel like if you do go through that process, like there's likely a misalignment there.
Yeah.
So I would encourage, I think, parents to really, really think through that and really do some research into like pedagogy. And try to figure out, again, our school is not for everyone. But looking into just the different processes, methodologies that are out there outside of traditional education or the traditional approach to like understand those and figure out where a good alignment is for them.
I love it. It's good. Yeah, dive into it. Do your research. Don't sit on the sidelines with this and assume. And I think, honestly, probably before meeting you, I think I might have just assumed things.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's helped me a ton.
I want one more quick thing
come
on. Oh gosh, and then I just blanked on it. It's my brain. Golly, I did so well throughout this whole process too.
The local cup is sponsoring this. They're great people. Go get a coffee.
Just look at this thing.
I mean, look at this thing. It's unbelievable. It's great.
Crafted.
They had cinnamon roll Saturday, the first Saturday of every month. You need to focus on what you were thinking about.
I know, but it's so nice. Like, it's hard not to. It's the first thing I mentioned.
First Saturday, and I'm there a lot. Like, honestly, I am there so much. People think it's my office. It's not. This is my office right here. Also run Build. If you're a leader and you're, have you thought of it yet?
No.
I could really use some more clients, and I'd love to, work with you and teach you all about leadership and culture. And thought of it.
Yep.
Sweet.
Sorry.
That's my friend.
The two questions.
I love him so much.
I know.
Oh man. All right. Here's another few questions. We're gonna circle back Coach Sam Show Heart right here for the last two questions. Okay. Yeah, it's the better husbands, better fathers.
Gotcha.
What I love doing, honestly, like men that I look up to. You're a man that I look up to that has taught me so much about being a dad, about being like stepping out, about challenging, the way to think, all that stuff. With men that I look up to, I love asking them about their wife and what drew them to their wife and what makes Alyssa so special to you. Go ahead.
Great question. I'm so grateful to my parents, actually. My parents have told me this before, like early on, baby, 1, 2, 3, 4 years old, like they were praying for my future wife at that time. And I really truly believe that the only way that I was able to be gifted Alyssa is through their prayers at an early age as they were praying for my future. So I try to do that for my boys. Hopefully they're as lucky as I have been with her, but she is truly a gift. She is the one thing I really feel like has exceeded expectations. And I had, our story is funny. I won't get into the whole thing, but I was friend zoned for a long time. So we actually grew up in the same neighborhood. In 6th grade, I moved there. She walked onto the bus for the first time that first day of school. And I told my friend Michael, who we're going to see soon, it's like, I'm going to marry her. That wasn't even close to being the case or true for like 6 years. So all through middle school, high school, like I definitely like really thought highly of her. And I really, I liked her a lot.
Yeah.
She did not have the similar feelings. In fact, we went to sophomore dance together, and she ended up dating somebody else like 2 weeks later. And so it was like this big thing. I texted her, I was like, you're going to want to be with me one day? And I'm going to say no. Which apparently
you got her.
I did.
Dude.
And man, did that really make her.
Yeah, I'm sure that like immediately switched her mind. Like,
correct. Yeah,
So smart.
Glad you understand.
I recommend that for sure.
So anyways, it wasn't until college and to be fair, I had never really like sat her down and told her. So I gave the speech.
Yeah.
Freshman year of college. Like
and
I
you've
sat
been
her
rehearsing
down,
that.
and I had been rehearsing it and writing it down for years. And I looked her in the eyes and I told her, I said, hey, I'm not the most handsome. I'm losing my hair. I'm not very tall. But you know what? No one will love you better than I will. And it worked.
Let's go.
It worked. So yeah, she's been a gift.
What quality, like give me a couple words to describe her. What qualities drew you in? What qualities do you see in her now that make her like just an awesome leader and of your children, make her qualified to be a guide? Talk me through that.
She's gracious and she is patient. She does not, like when I think of, actually when it was so funny. It was the easiest decision of all time to marry her.
Yeah.
I still struggled, like, just because that's a big decision for most men. I was like, it's a big commitment, this marriage. And ultimately it came down to, like, I was reading Proverbs 31.
Yeah.
She fit that.
Yeah.
She was beautiful, but like her spirit was something I really loved. So she's gracious. She she never fights.
Yeah.
Like she never pokes.
Yeah.
She's always respected and honored me.
Yeah.
Even when I didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
And gosh, like I did not deserve it. I still don't deserve it today in just different ways that I don't appreciate her, support her enough. But like she has been there and she is like all the crazy stuff that I've done, she is there. Yeah. And she has supported and she has believed the best of me.
Yeah. Gosh.
It's such a big decision, right? Your wife, like I think the Bible is so true and honest and right about what you should be looking for in a wife. And like, gosh, she's been great.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
She has been a gift to my wife, just a great friend and everything. She is gracious and patient with you, Mr. Ben. She is. And like, and to have both of our wives, even with like our shortcomings, no pun intended. I'm 5'10", you're 5'9", 3/4. Yeah. Like even with that, they believe the best in us, and they jump on board with these crazy adventures, and they're not just along for the ride. They are leading this thing. Like they have some of the most influence in the school right now. They are the lead guides in the school, and they're doing a phenomenal job of setting that tone and that culture for what a guide should look like. Mm-hmm. Their patience is unbelievable. They do an awesome job with that. I'll brag on my wife here for a second, but like seeing her in general, like first off, she made me pursue her, which like, being the stud.
Right. You just had all of them flocking to you.
Not really true, but like she made me pursue. She was so confident. She was like, I don't need you. Like, if you want to be with me, you pursue me. And like, gosh, I want that for Scarlett. I want her to know that she is the gift. She doesn't need to be entertained by like passive boys. She is the gift. She immediately made me like step into manhood. Like I needed to pursue her. And she wasn't going to text me first. She wasn't going to entertain herself with that. If I didn't like her, fine. She was moving on, like whatever. And that was like, just like not something that like, I thought that was really unique in her. And she had that confidence already, and she made me do that. She already got kind of elevated that. But then seeing my wife go from someone, like I've talked about this before, 2017 to 2025 now, seeing her go from someone that like was like kind of nervous to like pray out loud, to now someone who's like leading worship and making me cry on Easter Sunday with the way that she leads worship and leads people beautifully to the feet of Jesus. And also seeing her step out and deal with this conflict in the school and like deal with hard situations and stay calm and stay patient. Like it is unbelievable to see them step into that. Like, and we are where we are today because of them. Our school would not be the same without them. It wouldn't even be close. It wouldn't exist.
We couldn't have done it without them. Yeah.
And I know I am grateful for, I'm grateful for Lauren. I'm grateful for Alyssa, that Scarlett is going to get to like look to them as what it looks like to be a woman of God, to what it looks like to be that Proverbs 31 woman who people look to. So we're grateful. All right. Last thing. You ready?
I remembered my thing, by the way.
Oh, what is it?
Okay. It was just the fact.
Because I was rambling.
No.
Sorry,
what you said prompted me again. Like you're just constantly prompting. I appreciate you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I forgot again. No, I'm kidding. Parents being in charge. So like, I think what we see a lot is parents off-putting their responsibility of training, developing their child to the church or to even our school. And I think that's one thing that we are still working through. But like, I think our heart is to really create a community and empower the parents to be the ones and to remind them and to help them in that process of being the ones who are developing their child's spirit. So their spiritual formation is biblically, it is them, it's like the father in particular is like really, and I think that's why there's a root lie, I think, with a lot of fathers to get them to be passive because they know that they can do that, then they will win the family. Really trying to just remind our parents, it's like, hey, we're going to do all that we can, but like you are the most important part of that. And like, we want to come alongside of you. We want to ensure that we understand like your beliefs in terms of like who you believe your child to be. Like, that's why we always ask the parents in the family badge plan. And we ask them, hey, what are the 3 characteristics of your son? That's something that you're going to provide us. Like, we'll provide some feedback, thoughts on it. But like, we're going to come alongside you and help you to develop what you feel like God has called them into, and as you're the steward of that. So,
gosh, that's good.
Sorry.
Love that. Are you ready for the last
one?
All right. This is, I've already mentioned our sponsor when you were buffering, when your mind was buffering, but we're sponsored by the Local Cup, the Coach Sam Show, with, I think it's up to 3 million subscribers right now.
Yeah, you're doing a great job.
I mean, it's all, don't check on that. Like, I think there's like a bottom, like, it tells you the views, but it's 3 million subscribers right now. And we're just grateful for the Local Cup for being a part of this great journey, of this elite podcast. So what we're doing, we're going to finish with something called the Caffeinated Corner. And this is not something that you like.
I don't.
Because these are like, you got to reel it off now.
Fast.
Yeah.
You
can't.
You know me.
You can't process this.
I need the whiteboard.
You got to just go.
Okay.
All right. But I'm going to throw softballs. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to prep you real quick.
Okay. What we got?
Within our home church group, you already just talked about Alyssa. You're going to reel off 1-word descriptions of people in our home church group, including kids. The first thing that you think of. And we are going to send this to them immediately. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to think through this.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. You can give 1 or 2 words, but you just got to like what comes to mind. Okay. This is Caffeinated Corner.
Okay.
Are you feeling juiced up? Caffeine radiating through you. Okay. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. Sam.
Leader.
Thank you. Gosh, awesome. Jacob.
Favor.
Ward.
Serious.
Let's go. Lauren.
I want to give you more of her word. Serious and intentional. And yeah, I'll go there.
Intentional. Great friend too. Like, here you go.
Love the word. I love your word.
Lauren.
Discerning.
Discerning. Gracie.
Beautiful.
Let's go. Kinsey.
Wise.
Oh, wow. That's so good. All right, here we go. You ready for the kids? Cohen.
Courageous.
Malachi.
Tough.
Let's go, Malachi. Whoa. Silas.
Friend.
Yeah, yes. All right. Caleb.
Loving.
Let's go, Lucas. Strong chest.
Big old back. I love Lucas. Him and I are so close. God, honestly, I know that's funny, but
that's what you think of. That's great. It's Caffeinated Corner. That's what it's about. It's about what comes to mind.
That's it.
All right. All right. Sweet. Milo.
Wow. Gosh, just see like
the strong core. He has the strongest core. Jacob can hold him by his legs, and he does not like wave. Anyway, we got to get.
Actually, we need to get Jacob Massey involved with our tots, our preschoolers, and he can be part of LTAC because he can really train those boys of his.
All right, so that's my crew.
Perfect.
Let's go, crew. Goodness, that's awesome. All right, Rhodes.
I'm gonna make a joke. I'm gonna say unknown.
Rhodes, when you get older, I'm so sorry.
I don't even know how that came to be.
All right, he just said unknown because Ben sometimes tries to give compliments that don't sound like compliments. So Rhodes growing, developing, and like became out of just like the baby, the infant stage. And he was like, wow, this is like the first time I've really like noticed Rhodes.
That's right.
And so everybody was like, oh, well, you just noticed him right now? So that's kind of been like a joke.
No, Rhodes is, what would be this term? Like, I mean, I've just noticed him recently, so it's like tough for me to think about. Oh gosh,
sorry
about
about that.
Trying to like hurry up.
No, let's not do that.
Sorry. He is, I hate to say, handsome. He's handsome.
He is
a handsome baby.
I said that yesterday, and
you?
Ward gave me a hug because he was like, he looks like me. I know what you're saying. He is a handsome man. Any prophetic words for Scarlett, like my daughter?
Whoa. I mean, I got to be prompted about that.
No
Like,
doubt.
I
No
can't
doubt.
just-
You can text it to me.
I will.
Okay. Yeah.
Lucky.
Yes, she is going to be lucky. Her life is going to be marked by the blood of Jesus.
Yeah.
And she is going to love the gospel. There's not going to be a woman that loves the gospel more than Scarlett. That's why her name's going to be Scarlett. And love her already. She's going to be amazing.
Yeah, she's
She'll be amazing. And the girl to be named later, she's already named, but I can't say it right now. She is also going to be a wonderful woman of God. That's Kinsey and Ward's daughter. So,
real quick, did we pray over you last night for your birthday? Did that happen?
no,
That's ridiculous.
I know. I can't leave that for myself.
Well, I was, I had the issue that I had. So next Tuesday I'll be there.
Yeah.
But we'll pray. We'll do that, and we'll also. I think that's a good idea is to pray over the daughters again.
Yes.
I just feel like.
Come on, we'll do that next week. I love it. Well, Ben, you're the best. I love you so much. Thank you so much for being you. I couldn't imagine life without you in it. I couldn't imagine doing Train Up Academy without you. It wouldn't be a thing. Let's keep going.
Let's do it.
Love you, man.
Excited. Love you.
See you guys.